In the golden 1940s Hollywood, Dana Andrews was a star who lit up the silver screen, his rugged charm and soulful eyes unforgettable. As the driven detective in Laura, 1944, he captivated audiences. As the war-scarred veteran in The Best Years of Our Lives, 1946, a film that outshone giants, he stirred hearts. By 1947, ranked America's 23rd most popular actor, his powerful performances in The Oxbow Incident, 1943, and State Fair, 1945, promised a legacy that would endure. But Hollywood never stays still. The same quiet intensity that once set Dana Andrews apart slowly became easy to overlook. He didn't chase fame. He didn't scandalize headlines. And in a business built on noise, silence can be dangerous. Over time, his name slipped from the marquee, not with a fall but with a fade. What happened to the man who once held the screen with a glance? And why, despite everything he gave to cinema, did no one seem to notice he was slipping away? Dana Andrews' early life was rooted in a modest religious Southern family that emphasized hard work and moral values. He was born Carver Dana Andrews on January 1, 1909, on a farmstead near Collins, Mississippi, in Covington County. His father, Charles Forrest Andrews, was a Baptist minister who led a strict household focused on faith, with regular sermons, hymns, and rules against behaviors like drinking or smoking. His mother, Anna Speed, managed the home for their large family. Dana was the third of 13 children, which meant resources were limited, and everyone had to contribute. This environment built in him a strong sense of discipline and responsibility from a young age, qualities that later helped him handle the demands of Hollywood's competitive world. However, it also created a reserved personality, as emotional expression was not encouraged in such a conservative setting. The family's frequent moves due to his father's ministry work taught Dana adaptability early on. Shortly after his birth, they relocated to Louisville, Kentucky, and then to Huntsville, Texas, where most of his siblings, including future actor Steve Forrest, born William Forrest Andrews, were raised. Growing up in Texas during the post-World War I era, Dana experienced the South's traditional values, where careers in entertainment were seen as impractical or even improper for a preacher's son. The 1920s brought some economic growth to the region, but the family's modest income, reliant on church donations, meant Dana often wore hand-me-down or ill-fitting clothes, leading to teasing at school. This likely reinforced his quiet determination and ability to stay composed under pressure, traits that defined his on-screen roles as steady, thoughtful men. Dana showed academic promise as a child. He attended high school in Huntsville, Texas, where he developed an interest in literature and public speaking, perhaps influenced by his father's preaching style. These skills hinted at his future in acting, though he initially pursued a practical path. After high school, he enrolled at Sam Houston State Teachers College, now Sam Houston State University, in Huntsville around 1926, majoring in business administration. He studied there for about 3 years, focusing on accounting and management, which reflected his family's push for stable, respectable work. College exposed him to broader ideas during the Roaring Twenties, a time of cultural shifts like jazz and flapper culture, contrasting with his strict upbringing. This tension may have sparked his restlessness as he began to question the conventional life ahead. By 1929, with the Great Depression starting to hit, Dana left college without graduating to take a job as a bookkeeper and accountant for Gulf Oil in Austin, Texas. The position provided steady pay, but the economic downturn made job security uncertain, and Dana felt unfulfilled in the routine office work. His artistic side, particularly a desire to become a singer, grew stronger, clashing with the practical skills he had learned. The Depression worsened conditions across America, with widespread unemployment and bank failures, amplifying the risks of leaving a job. Yet in 1931, at age 22, Dana made a bold move that showed his emerging independence. He quit his oil company role, spent his savings on stylish clothes, a black alpaca trench coat, white silk scarf, and Homburg hat, to look the part of a performer, and hitchhiked to Los Angeles with almost no money. He arrived seeking singing opportunities, but quickly took odd jobs like driving a school bus for $10 a week, digging ditches, picking oranges, and pumping gas at a station in Van Nuys to survive. These early years shaped Dana's character and career foundation. The religious discipline from his father gave him the focus to persist through rejections. The large family's hardships built resilience and a strong work ethic, helping him juggle manual labor while pursuing dreams. Moving between states made him adaptable, key for transitioning to Hollywood. His business education provided fallback skills, but the conservative Southern norms he grew up with made his choice to chase entertainment a rebellious act, fueling his quiet ambition. By 1931, these experiences had turned him from a minister's son into a determined young man ready to build a new path, setting the stage for his acting breakthrough in the 1930s. The Hollywood that Dana Andrews arrived in was a town of dreams, but it was also a town of brutal realities. For every success story, there were thousands of hopefuls who never got their big break. Dana was no exception. He landed in Los Angeles in 1931 with a business degree from Sam Houston State University and ambitions of a singing career, but no acting experience. To survive, he took on grueling odd jobs: accountant, ditch digger, and most famously gas station attendant in Van Nuys. For 7 years, he scraped by, pouring gas by day and honing his craft in small theater productions by night. His persistence paid off in 1938 when a Samuel Goldwyn talent scout spotted him in a Hollywood community theater play. Not at the pump, despite studio publicity myths. Goldwyn saw potential, but demanded polish, sending Andrews to the Pasadena Playhouse to refine his raw talent. At the Playhouse, Andrews transformed. Through dozens of stage productions, he shed his thick Southern drawl, mastered stage presence, and grasped the subtleties of screen acting. This renowned training ground for aspiring stars gave him discipline and confidence, molding him into a performer ready for the big screen. His personal life, however, was marked by hardship. In 1932, he married Janet Murray, and they had a son, David, in 1933. Tragedy struck in 1935 when Janet died of pneumonia, leaving the 26-year-old Andrews a grieving single father, balancing auditions with odd jobs. Stability came in 1939 when he married Mary Todd, a fellow Playhouse actress. Their marriage, which brought 3 children, Catherine, Stephen, and Susan, became a steady anchor as his career began to soar. Andrews's film career started modestly. In 1940, Goldwyn loaned him to 20th Century Fox for bit parts in films like Lucky Cisco Kid and Sailor's Lady, often uncredited. These early roles were a crash course in camera work and set dynamics. His breakthrough came in The Westerner, 1940, a William Wyler Western starring Gary Cooper. Playing a bartender, Andrews's quiet charisma caught critics' attention. His everyman appeal, rugged yet relatable with a restrained intensity, set him apart in a Hollywood filled with flashier stars. By 1941, he landed supporting roles in Tobacco Road and Swamp Water, proving his knack for drama and rural grit. In 1942, he took his first lead in Berlin Correspondent, a wartime thriller, showing he could carry a film. The following year, The Oxbow Incident, 1943, elevated his reputation. As a man wrongly accused of murder in a stark Western about mob justice, Andrews delivered a raw, haunting performance that confronted prejudice head-on. Critics praised his depth, and the film's bold themes resonated with wartime audiences, marking him as a serious actor. Stardom arrived in 1944 with Laura, Otto Preminger's stylish film Noir. As Detective Mark McPherson, Andrews was magnetic, a tough cop unraveling a murder mystery while captivated by the victim's portrait. His cool demeanor and subtle vulnerability opposite Gene Tierney made the film a sensation, grossing over $2 million and earning rave reviews. Overnight, Andrews became a top leading man, his name above the title. From 1944 to 1948, he starred in a string of hits. The Purple Heart, 1944, as a defiant POW, A Walk in the Sun, 1945, a gritty war drama, and Boomerang, 1947, a tense legal thriller. His pinnacle was The Best Years of Our Lives, 1946, directed by Wyler. Playing Fred Derry, a veteran grappling with unemployment and PTSD, Andrews captured the post-war struggle with raw authenticity. The film won 7 Oscars, including Best Picture, and grossed $23 million, solidifying his status as a Hollywood icon. One of the lesser-known facets of Andrews' career was his success in radio, a powerhouse medium in the 1940s. He was a frequent voice on programs like Lux Radio Theater and Screen Guild Theater, where he reprised film roles or took on new ones, captivating millions of listeners nationwide. These radio dramas sharpened his vocal finesse, allowing him to convey emotion through voice alone while expanding his fame beyond the silver screen. The steady income from these gigs was crucial, supporting his growing family of 5 as the sole breadwinner, especially during leaner early years. Equally impressive was Andrews' business acumen. He channeled his earnings into Southern California real estate, snapping up properties that secured his financial future in an unpredictable industry. In a bold move for the era, he became one of the first actors to form his own production company in the late 1940s. This venture granted him a rare degree of creative control in Hollywood's rigid studio system, letting him influence scripts and casting, choices that strengthened his career and set him apart from peers tethered to studio contracts. But even as his professional life flourished, the seeds of personal struggles were taking root. The relentless pressures of stardom, grueling 12 to 14-hour days on set, constant media scrutiny, and the endless whirl of Hollywood's alcohol-soaked social scene began to wear him down. Like many contemporaries, Andrews turned to drinking as an escape. At first, it was just a glass of whiskey to unwind after long shoots or glitzy premieres, but by the late 1940s, it had morphed into a dangerous dependency. He later confessed that the weight of fame pushed him to rely on alcohol as a crutch, leading to alarming incidents like a near-fatal car crash in 1948. These struggles darkened his golden era, foreshadowing the professional and personal challenges that would haunt him in the 1950s. Yet, in the 1940s, Andrews' rise from gas station attendant to Hollywood icon was a testament to his grit and talent, even as the shadows of his downfall began to emerge. The Dana Andrews that audiences saw on screen was the epitome of control and quiet confidence. He was the man you could count on, the steady hand in a crisis. But in his private life, a different story was unfolding. The social drinking that had been a part of the Hollywood scene for years had for Dana spiraled into a full-blown addiction. It was a secret that he and his wife, Mary, tried desperately to keep hidden. In the 1950s, alcoholism was not widely understood as a disease. It was seen as a moral failing, a sign of weakness. For a major movie star, a public admission of such a problem would have been career suicide. So they covered it up. Mary would make excuses for his erratic behavior, for the times he was too ill to attend a social function or give an interview. The drinking began to affect his work. There are stories of him showing up to the set intoxicated, of him struggling to remember his lines. In a 1976 interview, he recalled an incident during the filming of Elephant Walk in 1954. He was supposed to be in a scene with Elizabeth Taylor, but he was so drunk that he couldn't deliver his lines. The director, William Dieterle, had to shoot the scene over his shoulder, with another actor feeding him his lines. It was a humiliating experience for a man who had always taken such pride in his professionalism. His career began to suffer. The A-list roles started to dry up, and he found himself in a string of B-movies and television shows. He was still working, but the quality of the projects was a far cry from the prestige films of his heyday. The man who had once been one of Hollywood's biggest stars was now in danger of becoming a Hollywood has-been. One of the most poignant and rarely told stories from this period involves his brother Steve Forrest, who was also an actor. Steve, who had a successful career of his own, looked up to his older brother. He saw Dana's talent and his intelligence, and it pained him to see the toll that alcoholism was taking on him. On more than one occasion, Steve tried to intervene to get his brother to seek help, but Dana was in denial, not yet ready to confront the depths of his addiction. The emotional impact on his family was immense. His wife, Mary, lived in a constant state of fear and anxiety. She loved her husband, but she was also a witness to his slow self-destruction. In a later interview, she spoke of the loneliness and isolation she felt during those years, of the feeling that she was fighting a losing battle against a disease she didn't understand. His children, too, were affected. They saw a side of their father that was a world away from the heroic figures he played on screen. There's a particularly heartbreaking anecdote from his daughter, Catherine. She recalled coming home from school one day to find her father passed out on the floor. It was a stark and terrifying image for a young girl, and it was a scene that was repeated all too often in the Andrews household. Yet even in the midst of his struggles, there were moments of clarity and hope. In the late 1960s, after decades of battling his addiction, Dana finally hit rock bottom. He had a moment of profound realization, a recognition that he was going to lose everything, his family, his career, his life, if he didn't stop drinking. He checked himself into a treatment center and began the long and arduous process of recovery. The story of Dana Andrews is not one of simple heroes and villains. It's a story of human complexity, of a man who was both a celebrated movie star and a struggling alcoholic. And like many figures in the public eye, his life was not without its controversies and debates. One of the primary controversies surrounds the nature of his decline. Was it simply a case of an actor falling victim to his own demons, or were there other factors at play? Some have argued that the Hollywood studio system itself was a contributing factor. In the golden age of Hollywood, studios had immense power over their actors. They controlled their careers, their public image, and even their personal lives. The pressure to maintain a certain image, to constantly be on, could be immense. For a man like Dana, who was naturally introverted and private, this constant scrutiny may have been a heavy burden to bear. There's also the question of how his alcoholism was handled by those around him. In today's world, there is a much greater understanding of addiction as a disease. There are support systems and treatment options that were not widely available in the 1950s and 60s. At the time, the prevailing attitude was one of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. While his wife and some close friends tried to help him, the industry as a whole was more inclined to look the other way, as long as he could still perform. Another area of debate concerns his later career. After he got sober, Dana became a passionate advocate for alcoholism awareness. In 1972, he appeared in a televised public service announcement for the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. In it, he spoke with startling honesty about his own struggles. "I'm Dana Andrews," he said, looking directly into the camera. "I'm also a recovering alcoholic." It was a brave and groundbreaking act for a celebrity at the time, and it helped to destigmatize the disease for countless people. However, some have questioned whether this late-in-life activism was enough to atone for the years of difficulty he caused his family and colleagues. It's a complex question with no easy answer. What is clear is that in his later years, Dana was a man who was trying to make amends, to use his own painful experiences to help others. There's also a historical debate about his acting style. In an era of more flamboyant and theatrical actors, Dana's understated, naturalistic style was sometimes seen as wooden or unexpressive. Critics at the time occasionally dismissed him as a one-note actor. However, with the passage of time, his performances have been reevaluated. Many now see his minimalist approach as a sign of his immense talent. He was able to convey a great deal of emotion with just a look or a gesture. He was a master of a certain kind of quiet intensity, a quality that made him perfect for the film noir genre and for roles that required a sense of grounded realism. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of his later life was his battle with Alzheimer's disease. In a cruel twist of irony, the man who had fought so hard to reclaim his mind from the fog of alcoholism found himself losing it to a different, more insidious disease. His final years were spent in a nursing home, his memory of his past life, of his fame and his struggles, fading away. The story of Dana Andrews is more than just a Hollywood biography. It's a cautionary tale, a story of redemption, and a powerful reminder of the human cost of fame. His life and career left an indelible mark on American culture, and his story continues to resonate today for a number of reasons. First and foremost, his work as an actor stands the test of time. Films like Laura, The Best Years of Our Lives, and The Oxbow Incident are considered classics of American cinema. His performances in these films are still studied and admired for their subtlety, their realism, and their emotional depth. He was a unique screen presence, a star who felt like a real person, and he brought a sense of quiet dignity to every role he played. However, behind his confident on-screen image, Dana Andrews secretly battled severe alcoholism for years, a problem that started during Prohibition in the 1920s, but grew unmanageable by the 1940s and dominated his life from the 1950s to the late 1960s. He described himself as a conditioned drinker who drank too much and too often, unable to stop even when it harmed his work and relationships. Early signs appeared in 1940 when he was jailed for driving under the influence, but the issue escalated in the 1950s, leading to 2 near-fatal car accidents while drunk. On movie sets, his drinking caused problems. During the 1954 film Elephant Walk, he drank heavily, forcing the crew to film him from behind in some scenes, with co-star Elizabeth Taylor helping him through takes. He often arrived late or unprepared, holding up productions and frustrating directors and studios. Studio head Darryl F. Zanuck grew so unhappy that he considered declaring Andrews incompetent, which damaged his reputation and led to a sharp career decline. From A-list stardom in the 1940s, he slid into B-movies by the mid-1950s, appearing in lesser films like Duel in the Jungle, 1954, Comanche, 1956, While the City Sleeps, 1956, Curse of the Demon, 1957, and The Fearmakers, 1958, followed by supporting roles in the 1960s such as The Frozen Dead, 1966, and Hot Rods to Hell, 1967. By the late 1960s, he shifted to television, including a role on the soap opera Bright Promise, 1969 to 1971, as major film offers dried up. The addiction also caused deep pain for his family. Married to Mary Todd since 1939, Andrews admitted his drinking made her unhappy, straining their relationship during the 1950s and 1960s. They had 3 children together, Catherine, Stephen, and Susan, plus his son David from his first marriage, and the constant issues created ongoing tension at home. Andrews later reflected on how his behavior affected those closest to him, including his agent and boss, but Mary stayed by his side and eventually helped guide him toward recovery. The family suffered quietly, with alcoholism overshadowing daily life until he sought help. Andrews tried to quit multiple times during the 1960s, attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and spending 2 months in psychiatric care at the Institute of Living in Hartford, Connecticut, but he relapsed repeatedly. Finally, in 1969, he achieved lasting sobriety through self-determination, quitting incrementally, 1 week at a time, then a month until it stuck. He credited his success to realizing he was miserable and deciding to change, with Mary's support playing a key role. He stayed sober for the rest of his life until his death in 1992. Beyond his film work, his public battle with alcoholism had a significant and lasting impact. In an era when addiction was shrouded in secrecy and shame, his willingness to speak openly about his struggles was a courageous act. His public service announcements and his work with the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence helped to change the public conversation about addiction. He showed that alcoholism was a disease, not a moral failing, and that recovery was possible. In doing so, he gave hope to countless people who were struggling in silence. His story also serves as a powerful commentary on the nature of fame. We often see celebrities as larger-than-life figures, immune to the problems that affect ordinary people. The story of Dana Andrews shatters that illusion. It reminds us that behind the glamorous facade, stars are human beings with their own vulnerabilities, their own demons, and their own private sorrows. His life is a testament to the fact that fame and fortune are no guarantee of happiness, and that the pressures of public life can take a terrible toll. What can we learn from his story? We can learn about the importance of compassion and understanding for those who are struggling with addiction. We can learn about the courage it takes to confront one's own demons and to seek help. And we can learn about the resilience of the human spirit. Despite his struggles, Dana Andrews was a man who fought back. He found sobriety, he dedicated himself to helping others, and he lived out his final years with a quiet dignity. In a way, his most enduring legacy may be the one that is least known. He was a devoted husband and father, a man who, despite his flaws, was deeply loved by his family. His wife, Mary, stood by him through his darkest days, and their long and enduring marriage is a testament to the power of love and commitment. Today, Dana Andrews is not as well remembered as some of his contemporaries like Humphrey Bogart or Cary Grant, but his story is no less important. It's a story that reminds us to look beyond the surface, to see the humanity in our heroes, and to remember that even in the darkest of times, there is always the possibility of redemption. He was a star who fell to earth, but in the end, he found a different kind of grace, not in the spotlight, but in the quiet courage of his own recovery. In the end, the story of Dana Andrews is one of quiet complexities. It's not a simple tale of triumph or tragedy, but a deeply human story of a man who experienced both in their most extreme forms. He was the handsome, reliable face on the silver screen, the embodiment of a certain kind of steadfast American masculinity. Yet, beneath that stoic surface was a man in a quiet, desperate battle with himself. His life reminds us that the brightest lights can cast the longest shadows. The very industry that made him a star also provided the environment where his struggles with alcohol could fester in secret. It's a sobering look at the often unseen pressures of fame, where public adoration can coexist with private despair. But perhaps the most important takeaway from Dana's story is not his fall, but his courageous, if quiet, climb back. His decision to speak publicly about his alcoholism in an era of intense stigma was an act of profound bravery. He traded the vanity of a flawless public image for the vulnerability of an honest man. In doing so, he may have saved lives, offering a glimmer of hope to others lost in the same darkness. He died in relative obscurity, his mind clouded by Alzheimer's. A final cruel irony for a man who had fought so hard to find clarity. But his legacy isn't just in the classic films he left behind. It's in the quiet strength he showed, not as a character on screen, but as a man navigating the messy, painful, and beautiful realities of his own life. Dana Andrews' story is a poignant, powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest battles are fought not for an audience, but for oneself, in the silent chambers of the human heart.